A comment is a note you can insert inside a cell. So if you want to add something that helps the user when they're filling out, for example, like this invoice, and they want to bill it to the name, is that the company name? Is that the person's name at the company? Instead of just typing it all in here saying, please be sure to add the name of the person at the company. Okay, that's too much. We just have name. So you can add a comment to it that when they hover over the cell, that comment pops out and says, hey, read me. So to go ahead and insert a comment to the cell that contains the name with a bit more details about what name we're looking for, you can insert the comment one of two ways. With it selected, either come up here and click on the Review tab, go to the Comments group, and there it is, New Comment. Click on it, and it pops open a little note window that you can go ahead and type in your comment. But hey, how did it know my name? Well, as you recall in an earlier training video, you can set your username up for personalizing your Microsoft Office, and to do that, come backstage by clicking on the File tab, go down to Options. General is selected by default, so just come down here and hey, personalize your copy of Microsoft Office. There's your name, and if it's not there, go ahead and type it in there, so when you insert a comment, it's got your name stamped to it. So that way when you share your workbooks with others, that name goes with it, so they can go, oh, it's Kurt Kershaw. He leaves comments on just basically every single cell. In any case, go ahead and click below your name and type in the content of the comment. Now that was kind of wordy and windy, but I wanted to show you that when you're typing and it does not all fit within the size of the note window, it scrolls down so you can keep typing for a super long time. In any case, to go back to the top, you can do Control Home or just use the up arrow key, take you right back to the top. And that's the comment. All you have to do is when you're done, go ahead and click on the outside of it and to read it. So in other words, when somebody comes up here and goes, oh, let me go ahead and type in a name, just before they click on it, they have to hover over it, in which case this thing is going to pop up. And also you can see that it's pointing to that little red triangle. So even before you get to it, if you notice a little red triangle in the upper right-hand corner of the cell, that means it's going to have a comment for you that when you hover over it, you can read it, but hey, I can't read it. What you can do if you need to make edits to it, go ahead and select the cell that contains the comment and either come up here on the Review tab in the Comments group and click on Edit Comment, pops it open so you can edit it, or let me go ahead and click out of it. You can right-click on it and go down to Edit, or actually even delete it. You can do that as well up here on the Review tab, but I'm going to go ahead and hit Undo so we can bring it back, and then right-click to edit the comment. And then I'm going to use one of the resizing handles, like the bottom right-hand corner, that square, that when I hover over it, I get arrows pointing in opposite directions. So when I click and drag it, I can keep making it bigger or big enough so you can actually see the full contents of the note. And when I'm done, click off. Then when I hover back over it, there we go. Now I don't have to right-click to edit it to scroll up and down to read it. I can make it big enough, which is nice. Make it as big as you want, because it's not going to get in your way. Well, that is as long as you don't hover over the cell. And let's go ahead and add another one. Let's right-click on Enter in Customer ID. And so when they're going to type in the customer ID, the front-end user, we can say, hey, you can look this up in a database that's on the server called ClientDB. So let's go ahead and right-click. That way, when they're scratching their heads going, what does this mean, Enter in Customer ID? Well, we can tell them. Maybe that's all the information I need to give them because they're educated where their server's at and the name of the files on there, or the database is ClientDB. So let's go ahead and click off of that. Now that we have two comments within the worksheet, if you want to toggle between the two without having to hover over each one, you can come up here on the Review tab and go to Next. Okay, it says it reached the end of the workbook. Do you want to continue reviewing from the beginning? That's okay. Click Okie dokie. Goes to the next, goes to the next. You can go previous, previous. Okay, since it got to the end of it, it wants to go to the beginning. Click Okie dokie. In the beginning for it, it goes back down to the name cell. And then, like I said, edit, delete. And in fact, if you want to be able to show the comments so you don't have to hover over it, because maybe you want to review all the comments without hovering over each one and trying to guess where each one's at, because I mean, that's really tiny, that little red triangle. So go ahead and you can say Show All Comments, and then go ahead and deselect it to hide it, or you can select the cell and come up here and say Show That Comment or Hide That Comment, or of course you can right-click and get the same options to Show That Comment. Now I have a question. Are these comments going to print? Hey, that's a good question. Let's take a look. Click on the File tab, go backstage down to Print. And do you see any comments here? No, so what you see here is what's going to be coming out of your printer. So if you don't see it, then it's not going to print. If you want to print the comments, you got a couple of options. You can come down here and click on the Page Setup link, click on the Sheet tab, and there it is, Comments. It's not going to print any. So if you do want to see them, click on the drop-down arrow, and you got two choices. You can view it as displayed on the sheet. Let me go ahead and select that and click Okie dokie. And how's it being displayed on the sheet? Well, it's not showing, so let's go ahead and arrow back. And the reason why it's not showing is because the page break is right here, so it's being cut off. So if I go ahead and click on it, hover over the border until I can see a four-way arrow, and click on it, that means I can move it in any one of the four directions. And so if I go ahead and click on File, go down to Print, there we go. So that's going to print just like you see it there. Let me go ahead and click on the Zoom In button and scroll over. And that's what's going to come out of your printer. Now the other one isn't showing because it's not being displayed. Oh sure, it's on the worksheet, but remember our setting was View as displayed on the worksheet. So you can do it that way, or click on Page Setup, go to the Sheet tab, and go ahead and click on the drop down arrow and say you want it at the end of the sheet. Click Okie dokie, so you get a second page. And on the second page, whether you're showing the comment or not, it's going to pull all the comments at the end of the worksheet or on the second page. And so you can see what cell it's in. Cell E7 has the comment. Let me go ahead and scroll over. Kurt Kershaw, you can look that up in our database. Cell B10 has this comment, so you can reference it by flipping from the second printed page and going back to the first and saying, oh, where's E7? Well, that's a good point. Without the grid here, I'm not able to zoom right to E7. In any case, it may be more of an index of notes for you to go, oh, this is something I should be aware of when I print this off and hand it out the meeting and saying, these are the things we look at when we go ahead and collect the information to create an invoice for a client. Let's go ahead and go back. Let's go ahead and bring this guy up, right click and say we want to show him as well. He's a bigger comment. And I want to click and drag the border of him right about there, move him over and down. And you can actually format the comments, so instead of the typical yellow background, looks like a, well, dark black border, you can right click on the border and then go to Format Comment. Oh, you get a plethora of choices. So you can choose the different font type. If you want to mess with the alignment, how the text is, the colors and lines, you don't have to go with the default color. And you can choose another color, but let's go to Fill Effects. And you can choose two colors, so you can have, like, let's say orange. And then down below going, oh, that's kind of fancy. Let me go ahead and take a look at that really quick. Oh, that's nice. Let's go ahead and hover over the border until you can see a four-way arrow, right click, go back to Format Comment, click on the drop-down arrow, go to Fill Effects, and let's go right to Picture and say Select a Picture. And you can either browse for a file on your computer or search the internet. Let's do that ghost theme thing. Boo. Oh, that's spooky. Oh, well, he's happy. How can you pass up a happy ghost? Let's go ahead and select him, click on Insert, click OK, click OK. He's kind of squished. Maybe we have to resize the comment a little bit. Ooh, now we made it more proportional, but I can't read my text. Well, you can format the text. You know, go ahead and click and drag to select it. Go to the Home tab. Let's make it all bold and maybe change the size of it. So, oh, if it's that huge, then I'm going to have to go ahead and really go crazy and open this up. Still, it's pretty challenging having that ghost there and being able to read the text. Well, you play with it. You get the idea. But in any case, you can have colors, you can change the color of the font in front of it, or just not have the ghost, which is saddening because he's cute, but then I can't read what is in the note. Format, and click on Colors and Lines, and do a light orange. Click OK. So if you need to edit it, you get that option at any time. Hyperlinks are typically used to access external resources quickly, like that of a website. So for example, if I want to add a website to my invoice, I can just go ahead and type in the URL www.videotrainingpro.com. Then hit enter and hey, a couple of things happened. One is it converted it into a hyperlink, meaning that you see the blue and the underline. That means it's a hyperlink, and if you want verification or validation, hover over it. You get the finger, the index finger pointing, and you can see in the pop-up over to the right, You got the URL beginning with http:/, which isn't over here, but that's part of it to get us to the website. And then it says click once to follow, or click and hold to select the cells. So if I click once on it to go to that website, it takes me right to it. Great, close out. But if the cell is about yay big and I need to select the cell to actually edit the contents they're in, because as you can see up here, the font type is Arial size 10, but with this one down below, you can see up here it's Trebuchet size 8, and I want to convert it to that, or maybe make it bold, just do some general formatting to that URL. Then with the cell, when I want to click on it without clicking on the hyperlink, click on it, hold it, and wait until it turns into a white cross, then you can let go. Now you have it selected without actually following through with the hyperlink. And then you can come up here and type in Trebuchet, and then hit enter, and then we'll change it to size 8. That's a little bit better. And in fact, you can edit this if you don't want to include the www dot. So to edit the hyperlink, just with the finger hovering over it, right-click on it, and go down to Edit. There's the text that's being displayed, and there's the actual URL for it. So if you want the text to not display the www dot, then go ahead and get rid of that. And in fact, when they hover over it, if you want a screen tip that says something like, hey, this is our website, or for more information, or if you have questions about your invoice, let's go ahead and click on it. There's the screen text. Please visit our website and let us know how we're doing. And then go ahead and click Okie dokie. And then that's it. Let's go ahead and click OK and see how it handles. OK. Well, first thing is that it did what we commanded it to do, where it got rid of the www dot. It's got videotrainingpro.com. And when you hover over it, over to the right, you get the pop-up that says, please visit our website and let us know how we're doing. However, it reverted back to size Arial 10, and that's not working for me. So let's go ahead and click on it, hold it until we get the white cross, and let go of the mouse. Then with it selected, we can go ahead and change it back to Trebuchet, and then hit enter, and then size 8. And then if you're looking at this going, hey, you know what? That's squished all the way over to the left, unlike these other ones that are indented. To go ahead and indent this, as we learned in an earlier training video, you can right-click on the cell, go down to Format Cells, you click and drag the title bar over, click on the Alignment tab, and then say that you want to indent. I think one's enough, and just make sure that it's going to be left indented, and click OK. Hey, that works. Now it's aligned with all these others. Nice. Next, if you want to be able to reference another, like let's say Excel workbook or document on your computer, even that of an image, if you want it to open up an image, instead of going to like a website, something external, let's go ahead and look at entering customer ID, because we have, like I said, a database that contains the name of all our current customers with an ID, or how to generate an ID for a new customer. In any case, go ahead and right-click on it and go down to Hyperlink. And then the text to display is enter in a customer ID. That's fine. And then over to the left-hand side, it says, where do you want to link to? Well, we want an existing file or web page. We already did the web page thing, so we want to look for an existing file on our computer. So down below, you can see that you can look in the current folder, which is my desktop. So on the desktop, where you can click on the drop-down arrow and search somewhere else, but on my desktop, in the main view, is my exercises folder. Double-click on it to open it up, and let's say my database is in here. Let's call it the first one, Absolute References. Well, an exercise from an earlier training video, but let's say that's our database. We want to link to that external workbook, or if you have a document, go ahead and select it. If you have a picture, go ahead and select that. Whatever you want to link to, that when somebody clicks on this, it opens it right up. And of course, you got your screen tip that when they hover over it, you can type in something that says, hey, go ahead and click on this to look up the customer ID. But as far as this goes, let's click OK, and then go ahead and hover over it. You get the address that takes us to the exercises folder on the desktop. Click on it, opens it up. Great. Then you can look up if it was a database actually. That contained a list of all of the numbers for the current clients or numbers that we would generate for new clients. Let's go ahead and close out. And then finally, how about email? So instead of having the email address here, maybe it's something we just want them to click on that opens up their Microsoft Outlook or email client program, that from there they can go ahead and send us an email. So to do that, right-click, go down to Hyperlink, and let's come down here and say that we want to have an email address. So what's the email address? Now, I'm making this up, so nobody tried to email me. Well, if you did, it wouldn't matter anyways. And notice when I start typing in my first name, it adds the email to the HTML code in front of it. That tells it that whatever comes after the colon is going to be the email address. So you want to keep that. Don't delete it. Just keep on typing at videotrainingpro.com. And then when they click on it, not only does it open up their email client program, but how about something that already adds the subject for them? Like, I have a question, or invoice follow up, because it is about the invoice. So maybe it's proprietary to that. In any case, you can leave it blank or add it, and when they click on it, it'll open it up with a new email message addressed to me, and then the subject already typed in there for them. And you got the screen tip you can add. You can say, please contact us with questions about your invoice. Click OK. Then the text to display, contact me. In any case, go ahead and click OK. That's it. Well, okay, it updates it. It goes to Arial size 10. You can convert it. We know how to do that, but let's just go ahead and click on it to see what happens. Well, first off, when you hover over it, you can see in the pop-up it says, please contact us with questions about your invoice. Click on it. It wants to open up Outlook, but I have different profiles. You can watch my Outlook training videos on the different profiles you can create. Otherwise, if you have one profile, you won't get this profile option. It'll just, let me click OK. Open right up the email message in your email client program, addressed to me, invoice follow-up. I forgot the dash. You can right-click and add the dash there to help me out and go, this is so unprofessional. You didn't add the dash for us. In any case, you know how to edit the contents of the cell. So let's go ahead and close out, and then of course they can type in the body of the message, the questions that they have, and click send, and away it goes. Let's go ahead and close out and say no, and then right click to edit the hyperlink, make your changes to it, dash, click OK, or if you want to remove the hyperlink, you can right click on it and remove it. It's no longer there. Then finally, if you have images, you can hyperlink those as well. So there's an image there, go ahead and select it, right click on it, go down to hyperlink. You get the same options, so you can even go to a website and just come down here and do www.video. The moment I start typing it in, it remembers it, so it just fills it in for me. In any case, you'll just have to keep typing your URL if it's new and you haven't added it before. Click OK, click off here, then go ahead and hover over it. Hey, you get the finger, click on it, links right to the website. A watermark is a text or an image on a page, but it's washed out or faded. Something that's subtle, like when you watch TV, you can see the little logo down below of some station here. Well, if you want to put that, like for Santa's toy store, maybe the picture of Santa behind the data here, you want to wash it out or fade it, otherwise you won't be able to focus on the numbers here. But something that's subtle that you can say, oh, that's nice, and kind of makes it more aesthetically pleasing to look at, as in this example. So to go ahead and insert an image and then to convert it or wash it out so it'll appear as a watermark behind the data here. Then we want to go and insert our headers and footers, which you can watch my training video on that. But in short, come up here, click on the Insert tab, go to the text group, and there it is, header and footer. Click on it. It changes views, as you recall in the header and footer training video. So on the View tab, we're in the page layout. You can't see it or it's not highlighted because when you're in the page layout view and you're in the header or footer section, you don't get the options to see what view you're in, as well as even changing views. So if you click out of the header section, then you can see it's highlighted page layout. And then you can go back to the normal view. But you can't do that when you're in the header, or if you scroll down and click anywhere within the footer. You get 3 sections within the footer and you get 3 sections within the header. Now remember, anything that you insert into the header or footer is going to appear on every single page. Well, we only have one page, so that's not going to make a difference, but nonetheless, let's go ahead and click anywhere within the header. I'm going to do it in the center section and then insert a picture by coming up to its related contextual design tab. Go to the header and footer elements group and click on picture. And let's go ahead and look for Santa. Hit enter. I'm going to do an online search. Oh, he's a jolly old elf. Let's go ahead and scroll through to find something that will represent Santa here for our database. Oh, he looks all right. Let's go ahead and select him. Click Insert. And it shows the code for the picture. If you actually want to see the picture, then click outside of the header, like down below, and there's the picture. Now you can see that he's in full color mode. He's not washed out or bleached, so it may be a little bit hard to read the numbers, except with his white beard. I can actually see some of the numbers, so hey, that's not too bad. But in any case, let's go ahead and click back up in here, and with the code selected for the picture, we can click in front of it, hit enter a couple of times so we can push the code down. So in turn, when I click off, it pushes Santa down. Then we can come back up here, and with the code selected, come up here on the Design tab to the Header and Footer Elements group, click on Format Picture. And if you want to shrink up the picture, maybe it's too big. Let me see. Yeah, it might be a bit big. How about if we just do 2 inches? Type in 2. For the width, if I hit the Tab key, because it's got lock aspect ratio checked, it'll update the height as well. So when I click OK, that's not too bad. So maybe with him being smaller, I can hit enter several more times to push him down even further. Okay, let's just go with it. You get the idea. Let's go ahead and click in here, click on Format Picture. Now in addition to that, let's click on the Picture tab and change the color from automatic to something washed out. So the brightness is going to be at 85%, the contrast at 15%. So when I click OK, wow. Because of that, you can't really see him too well because of the white beard. So when I click off, well, that's the purpose of the watermark. You want to play with the washout and brightness to make it distinguish enough, but not too washed out, like in this case, where you can't even see what that is. I see an eye. Ooh, that's pretty spooky. You don't want one eye looking at you without some definition behind it, but you get the idea. You can go ahead and play with that and customize it and tweak it so it actually looks like a pretty cool watermark, except for maybe just cresting above the header row here. I think we did pretty good. And then to get out of this view, the page layout, come up here, click on the View tab, and I can actually click on Normal because I'm not in the header. If I was in the header, I couldn't click on it, so I got to go back down, click on a regular cell, click on the Normal, and it's not going to display it in the normal view, but will it print off? Of course. Let's go File, down to Print, because whatever you see in the print preview is going to be coming out of your printer. Let's click on it to zoom in, scroll over. That's a little bit better in black and white. But again, that's just the one-eye guy. His other eye is hidden behind the numbers. So I guess with the hat, it might be kind of a giveaway. In any case, you pick the Santa for your example. In an earlier training video, we learned about how to apply themes and the whole definition and the premise and the basis for working with your themes and how it gets set up. You want to watch that training video because if not, and this one's not going to make much sense. Assuming that you've seen it, I'm going to show you how you can create your own custom colors, your own custom fonts as when it comes to themes. And then the collection of that, those 3 elements, colors, fonts, well, effects you can't customize, but those 3 elements make up the overall theme that you can go ahead and save as your customized theme. So to go ahead and customize your themes individually, the elements that is that make up the overall theme, come up here and click on the Page Layout tab, go to the Themes group. There you go. There's the theme that is made up of these 3 elements, colors, fonts, and effects. And I want to show you how you can create your own custom theme color. Click on the drop-down arrow. If you don't like any of these, then come down to the very bottom, click on Customize Colors, and there we go. You've got your text and background, and so you got the samples to compare and contrast. When you have a dark background, the dark blue, like you see here, you want white text or something light against a dark background, as opposed to a light background, which is right here, with dark text. And then you get your accent colors for different smart art shapes, and then down below your hyperlinks. So you can see here that before you click on it, this is what it looks like in both the light and the dark background. And then after you click on it to show that you followed through with the hyperlink, that you've been there before, as it were, deja vu, and then it's got it in purple. So if you want something like against the dark background that's different than white text, then go ahead and click on the white text background, light 1, and choose something like light pink. Works okay. And then maybe for the light background, you can change the light background and go somewhere else, maybe a lighter pink. In any case, we got this pink thing going. You go ahead and choose that, and you can also change the text if you wanted a different color, but I'm getting into dangerous territories because if I change this to a dark blue, it's kind of getting away from something that's very contrasting as far as black text. So you be the artist, you change it. Let's come down here. You can change the color for the hyperlinks, but when you're done, Or if you're like, let's go ahead and reset it and start over again, and you're like, hey, I like it the way it is. Okay, I better make one change. Let's go ahead and use something besides black text against light background and use maybe blue. There we go. That's okay. And then we'll call it My Spiffy Theme Colors. Click Save. And then to apply it, oh, you see it's already been applied there. There's the light blue. It applies to this, but not to that. And reason being, if you watch my training video on how to apply themes, is that when I go to the Home tab and you select a cell and you come up here and click on the font and scroll to the top, you got your theme fonts. And if the font you have here, like I have in this range, isn't a theme font, it's not going to update when you change your themes. So this isn't going to update because it's not a theme font. What kind of font is it? Well, it's Arial. And the current theme font is Calibri for the body. So when I select this down below, is it Calibri? Yes. So that is a theme font. So let's go back to our page layout here. And I did that so you can compare and contrast against, hey, this area is going to update with any themes that I change as far as the colors and font types go, as opposed to this one where it's just static, dead. It doesn't care about being thematic. And then let's come back up here. And let's go and click on colors, and there it is, My Spiffy Theme Colors. So if you want to tweak that, you can right click on it and go down to Edit, update it. So if you don't want this light blue, maybe you want something red. Oh, that's going to be fun. Click Save. It updates. Doesn't update up above because it's not set to be included as a theme with the colors or even the fonts for that matter. In fact, let's come up here and click on the fonts and say, I don't like any of these. Let's go ahead and create our own custom theme font, select it, and for your headings, and we talked about heading styles in an earlier training video. When you apply a heading style, it'll be in Cambria, or how about if we choose Comic Sans, and then Calibri, sure, why not? We'll leave it as is and say this is our Spiffy custom font, and then click Save. And let's go ahead and select the range here and make that into our heading font. Right now it's just the body of it. So if I come up here and click on the Home tab and change it from the body as a theme, but say I want it as a heading, then it updates it to Comic Sans. Hey, because that's the theme I've selected for any font that is connected to the theme by choosing a theme font. So when I come up here on the page layout and I click on the drop down arrow, there's my Spiffy custom font. If I choose another theme, you can see it updates it down below. But we'll leave it as is. And then, of course, if you want to get rid of it, you can right-click on it and delete it. I'm not. Let's go ahead and click off and say, okay, I like the colors, I like the fonts. The effects you can't customize. What you see is what you get. You can, however, choose something here like a riblet. That sounds like something you'd get from McDonald's. Let's go ahead and choose that. And then when you want to save this so you can apply it to future workbooks, and I have to go through this again by recreating this perfect theme for your colors, fonts, and effects. Come up here, click on the themes drop-down arrow, and of course you can hover over these and update the colors. The fonts have nothing to do with colors, so this is updating here with the color because that's not font. Those are banded rows, and that's a color that can be updated. In any case, go ahead and click on Save Current Theme, and we'll call it Spiffy, and click Save. And when I go ahead and click on File, go down to New, and do a blank workbook, and I want to update this with the Spiffy theme layout. Click on Page Layout, go to Themes, click on the drop-down arrow. Hey, there's something spiffy. And of course, you can right-click on it and delete it as well. Yes, go back to it. It's gone. Close out, back to my worksheet. Click on Themes, it's gone. But not my custom individual elements that make up a theme colors or theme fonts. They're there. So I can go ahead and resave it. Again, if I want to use the combination of colors, fonts, and effects for a future theme in another workbook. If you haven't watched the Level 1 training video on conditional formatting, you want to watch that because I'm going to advance a little bit and go to intermediate conditional formatting, something more advanced than beginner. And as you recall, when you select a range that you want to apply a format to, it's based upon a condition or criteria that you set, and that's conditional formatting. So let's come up here on the Home tab to the Styles group and click on Conditional Formatting. We went over the basics in Level 1. Let's go to something more intermediate by clicking on the new rule. And we've got the intermediate that I want to cover. The last one here is going to be for Level 3. That's a bit more advanced, so we'll save it for that. First off, format all the cells based on their values. What values? It could be the lowest value. It can be a given value, like a certain number, percentage, formula. We'll say lowest value, and we'll change the color to red. And then as it goes from red all the way up to the highest value, that's going to be in yellow. Instead of that, let's do a 3-color scale, because you know what? Going from red to yellow is a bit easy to define. But how about if we go to the highest in green? And hey, I think that looks a little bit easier to notice the transition to the median or the average based upon those that are low and those that are high. Click OK and see that? Isn't that fun? So the lowest is in red. Ooh, that's no good. And then we start going up to orange. Ooh, we're getting better. We're going to yellow. Ooh, that's even great. Oh, the deepest green. That's what we want to see. The highest in sales, which was July. Let's go ahead and select the range again. Come back up here, conditional formatting. Instead of doing a new rule, how about if we go ahead and manage the rules that we already have and double click on the current rule. And instead of working with the conditional formatting based on their values, let's come up here and go to format only cells that contain, let's say, cell values between 900 and 1000. And then you can set the formatting and say, let's just do a fill of yellow, something in between. Click OK, apply. There you go. Everything that's in between those two numbers gets highlighted, 900 and 1000. And go ahead and edit the rule. You can say it's not between, equal to, greater than, less than. Let's go ahead and move to the next one. Format only top or bottom ranked values. So let's say the top 5 get ranked and they get the green because, hey, anything in high value is always a go for me. That's green. Click OK, click apply. There's the top 5. Let's go ahead and edit the rule. Let's continue on. Format only values that are above or below average. You choose. For the range here, you can see down below the average is 1040. Do you want to format those that are above that average? Just go ahead and click OK, click apply. And so anything that's above 1040 is in the green. Go ahead and click on Edit Rule, Format Only Unique or Duplicate Values. So if we want to look for duplicates, I'll just leave it as is. You can click on the drop-down arrow or Unique, something that is different and not like all the others, because if you have a whole database of duplicates and there's one value that's unique, you want to highlight that. But let's look for duplicates, click OK, click Apply, and only have 2. So June and February had the exact same dollars in sales. Now before you go ahead and create a spreadsheet of invoices, purchase orders, budgets, inventories, or even a calendar, Excel has some templates you may want to consider looking at. That way you don't have to reinvent the wheel or recreate the wheel. It's already done for you. And if you don't like the colors, well, that's just little stuff. You can go ahead and tweak that and format it. So let's come up here, click on the File tab, go down to New, and there's all the templates you can choose from. Scroll down, but hey, if you don't have time, you know exactly what you're looking for, maybe by category, business, personal, industry, or specifically, like we can do invoices, hit enter, searches thousands of online templates, and look at all those invoices. Scroll down to find the one that looks somewhat decent to you, and then when you find it, go ahead and select it. Opens up a little preview window, something that you can get a little closer to, and then the description of it. And then you can go ahead and advance to the next one without closing out of it and looking at the next one. So you can stay in the window here and read more about the purpose of the invoice. And then if you like it, go ahead and click on Create, downloads it for you, and there you go. You can go ahead and replace this with your logo, select it, that's an image. So you can go ahead and right click on it and go down to Change Picture, opens up a window to go ahead and browse for a logo on your computer or search the internet. Hey, still somebody else's. Okay. That's not good. Microsoft's only used for good. Close out and replace everything here with whatever you want to do to make it your own. And then once you've updated it, like with your company name, logo, and everything, then the next step is if it's just a one-time thing, you're good. But if you want to go ahead after you add the generals to it, like the company name and also your return address, and you're like, okay, that's my stuff, and I want to go ahead and not have to go backstage, click on New, go search for the same invoice every time, and then retype in everything again, go ahead and save it as your own template. So let's go ahead and type in Dreamforce LLC, then the street address. You get the idea. Then come up here, click on Save As, change the Save As type from a workbook because this is going to be a template, and we want to go to Excel template. Select it. Takes us right to the Custom Office Templates folder. Hey, you already have a spiffy invoice in there. Well, this will be my spiffy too. Maybe I'm a little bit more personable or offer free services or products for those who make large amounts of purchases, so it's for special clients. Go ahead and click Save. Then go ahead and close out of here. Oh, that's open, so, well, with it open, that's fine. We can go ahead and click File, go down to New, so when I'm ready to bill another client to invoice them, and this is a special client, go ahead and select Personal, and there they are, My Spiffy Invoice, the original, then My Spiffy 2 for special clients. And you get that little push pin here because by default, when you have tons of these templates here, and you want to be able to always have it there and not roll off because it's not the most recent template that you've used, then go ahead and click on the push pin. It'll stay there. So even if you haven't used it for years, so to speak, but you've gone through hundreds of others, it'll always stay static right there and not roll off because it hasn't been used recently. Of course, you can go ahead and unpin it. And then when you're ready, select it, opens it up. It's got your company name, your logo, all the stuff. So all you have to do is go ahead and type in who it's to and save it as a file, email it off, print it off, fax it off, and you're good to go. You don't have to recreate it over and over and over again. Of course, you may want to update this because not everybody's going to have a finance charge, 1.5%. Like I said, you got to go ahead and customize this before you save it as a template. In which case, I'd go ahead and delete all this and clear it out because it's not going to be the same for everybody. And you start with something blank. The only thing that's going to be consistent again is going to be your logo, company name, your street address, email address, things like that. Everything else is going to be dynamic. And then if you want to delete a template, then come back up here and click on Save As. And you can see it took me right to the Custom Office Templates folder. And if it didn't, well, when it does, it doesn't show me the templates because it's looking for the extension .xlsx, not the templates, which is, click on the drop-down arrow, .xltx, the extensions. And if you don't know anything about extensions, you want to see them or you can't see them or the dangers behind them, then watch my Windows training video on extensions. In any case, once I change it over there, I'm still in the same folder, or it'll take you to that folder, but now I can go ahead and see the templates that I saved within the folder, and then in which case you can go ahead and right-click on the template and go down to Delete and say yes, and it's gone. And right-click, delete, and they're both gone. And if you right-click to delete it and it doesn't delete it, saying something like there's an error, it's already open, then go ahead and close out of Excel completely, open back up Excel, and then go ahead and do your Save As. And then change the Save As type to the extension that we just saw, but it'll say Excel template. And then go ahead and in that folder, delete the templates, and you're good to go. The Properties is a place you can go to find more information about the workbook or information you want to enter in about the workbook. Things that you don't want to necessarily keep track of or view in the spreadsheet here. Things like who created the workbook, the editor, the author, the company name, website, comments, and there's two ways you can go about viewing or entering in the properties for the workbook. One way is with the workbook open. Just come up here, click on the File tab, go Backstage, Info selected by default, and there it is, Workbook Properties. But we're going to come over here and look at the customizable part of the properties like the title, where it says Add Title. If you want to add a title, click in the field and say this is about sales. Hit Enter to accept it. And then tags are searchable keywords. In other words, when I click back, the title of the workbook up in the title bar and anything else that I have in the spreadsheet, when you're searching for it in Windows, like the keyword destination, because it's in the spreadsheet, it'll find this workbook. So instead of typing in promotion here, so it's searchable, I can go Backstage and put it as a tag or a keyword. So File, Info, come over here, Tag, and we'll say promotion. And if you have additional keywords you want to add, just comma, and then comma, and then more. In any case, just keep it to the two. But the comma is going to be the separator in between each keyword. And I typed in something that's just outlandish, gibberflu, to let you know that it will find it. And then you've got categories, and when it was last modified, created, the author, you can add an author. Come down here to click on Show All Properties so you can get more properties. Like the comments, there's the website, and you can change it right there if you like. Or if you want more advanced properties, Then come up here and you see that little triangle pointing down, click on it, and there it is, Advanced Properties. Brings up the Advanced Properties window. Click on the first tab. Let's work our way from left to right. First of all, you get the general information like the type, location, size, when it was created, modified, and accessed. And if you're working for some company on their network, they'll probably have the name of the person that created it, modified it, and accessed it last. Then the Summary tab, which is pretty much the same thing that you see over here, that you can go ahead and edit here. And you can add, well, there you go, keywords. It says over here that they are tags, but they're keywords. And then we got statistics. Again, created, modified, accessed, last saved by, and it's got my name. How did it know that that was me saving it? Well, as you recall in an earlier training video, let me close out. When you go backstage down to Options, the General tab selected by default, down below you can personalize it, and it pulled it from the username. So if it's not your name, go ahead and type in your name so it can pull it over into the Properties part there, the last saved by. Click OK, go backstage again, File, come over here to Properties, to Advanced Properties, last saved by, let's go to Contents. Now the contents of my workbook is that I just have one worksheet, and the name of the worksheet is Sheet 1, and on that worksheet I have one named range, and it's Department. I'll show you that in just a minute. Let's go to Custom, and you can tweak it. It's got some default names like Checked By. Who was it checked by? Well, you can come down here and enter in the value, type in your name or somebody's name, and click Add. And you get other data types, like not just a text field, but you can have a date field, a number field, or a yes or no field. So for example, client, is this workbook about clients or for clients? You can say, let's use yes or no, and select no and click Add. See, pretty simplistic. And you can also do your own custom here, like if you want to say edited by and you want to type in somebody's name, then we got to change the data type from a yes no to a text field so you can type in the person's name, Johnny, and then click Add. And then finally, we've got the link to content. When you check it, it pulls in all the named ranges, and I only got one, so I can just select that one. And for the named range, let's just say that it's going to be linked to Susie. She's in charge of the named range, meaning that she's responsible for entering the data into that range. Click Add, and notice down below the value of it is sales. Why does it say sales? Because the first cell of the named range has the text in there, sales. You want to see it? Of course you do. Let's click Okie dokie, go back, and there it is, sales. So let me go ahead and click on the name box, drop down arrow to department, and there's the first cell in the name range that it has selected, and it's sales. So she's responsible for entering in the sales for Simpson, for Humphreys, for Heffernan, the sales in the training, consulting, management, and IT. And then if you need to make any changes to it, then just go ahead and go backstage, make your changes, and then when you're done, save your work. Now if you save your work and it clears out everything here, and you're like, what the fudge? And you type in more information and you click save and it clears it out. How you can get around that so it doesn't clear out the personal information upon save is to go down to Options, click Trust Center, come over here and click the Trust Center settings, and then come over here and click on Privacy Options, and it's that culprit right there. Remove personal information from file properties on save. Just uncheck it and click OK, and you won't have that nightmare again. Which brings up a good point. If you're like, well, wait a second, I'm going to hand this workbook off to somebody else and it's got all my gibberflu stuff on that. How can I go ahead and get rid of it? So before I clear it out, let me go ahead and go backstage and click Save and Close Out. And let's go ahead and open up the exercises folder on my desktop, because in that folder is my workbook properties. So if I type in a keyword like workbook, it'll search and it'll highlight it and find it for me. I mean, woohoo. Big search, right? Only one, can't go wrong. But hey, wait a minute. Let me go ahead and click on the X and try it again and say gibberflu. Will it find it? It found it as part of the tag, so it works. Nice. In any case, let's go ahead and open it up, double click. If you want to clear this information out, there is the Document Inspector property, which is found backstage. Click on the File tab, Info selected by default, and again it's about properties, so if you come down here and click on Check for Issues and inspect the document for hidden properties or personal information that you want removed before you hand this off to somebody else, click on it. And that's what I'm looking at right here, is inspects for hidden metadata or personal information saved with the document. So Document Properties. So if I click Inspect and it finds something, which of course it will because it's over here, you can see it, Promotion and Gibberflu. So that's the document properties, and it includes the author's name, absolute path to the workbook, printer properties, click Remove All, and you can see it all went bye-bye. So then I can go ahead and close out, save it, hand it off to somebody else, and not have them mess with or be annoyed with all my details, including the advanced properties. On the Custom tab, it's all been cleared out. And then finally, let's go ahead and close out of here. And, well, we won't save it. And let's come back here, and you can see part of the properties when I'm doing a search. If I close out of the search, and I can just go ahead, and the other way to find the properties of the file here, you can actually right-click on it and go down to, there it is, in the shortcut menu, Properties. It brings up window, the properties. You got the General tab, just pretty much what you saw with the Advanced Properties, the General tab. There's the Security, the Details. You can customize this. You can delete the sales or add to the sales. You can add more. There you go, add a tag by typing in another keyword, key, and then go ahead and keep it on typing. And then if it finds other keywords that are already part of the searches, you can go ahead and check that, and it'll add it there for you. And you can scroll down, see what other information is available, and if there's any previous versions, and it's searching for it. And if there was, you can go ahead and open up previous versions of it. And we talked about versions, but for right now, that's a good foundation for properties. The custom view can take a snapshot of your screen. That can include, if you choose to include, print settings or set print area, hidden columns and/or rows, and filter data. And that can be found up here on the View tab because it is a view, more specifically a custom view in the Workbook Views group. Click on Custom Views. Let's go ahead and add one. And this one's going to be our original. I always like to start with the original so I have something to go back to. And you can include in this view, if you have any, set print areas or hidden rows, columns, and filters, which we don't, so it doesn't matter if I leave them checked or not. I'll go ahead and leave them checked and click OK. That's my original view. Now let's go ahead and do a custom view. Let's do filters. I'm going to go ahead and select my range because if I don't select my range here, when I add the filter and I select a cell within the database here, it's going to add the filters up at the top because, well, I didn't do a good job at distinguishing, as in this example, the data and my header row from everything else and the text up above. So for example, if I select a cell in a database that I did not build correctly or that Excel can delineate between here and what's up above it, something that's not part of it, then when I come up and click on the Home tab and go to the Editing group, click on Sort and Filter down to Filter, it adds the filters up here, and I don't want filters up here. I want them for the labels for each column. So you see what I'm saying? Not really defined. Let me go ahead and hit Undo, and then select the range here, and then try it again. Sort and Filter to Filter, and there we go. So I can go ahead and click on the drop-down arrow for one, unselect all, and say I want antibacterial, anti-cancer, click OK. And there we go, we just have those two categories up. So I can go ahead and take a snapshot or a custom view of what I have here by coming up, clicking on the View tab, going to Workbook Views group, clicking on Custom Views, and click on Add. And this can be my antibacterial and cancer. So we can go ahead and click OK. That's the custom view for there. And how about if we go ahead and clear this, click on the funnel, and say select all, and then click OK, so we're back to where we started. Or I could have gone back to my original view. That worked. And let's go ahead and click and drag columns H and I, right-click, and let's go down to hide those because it will take a snapshot and include any hidden columns and or rows. This time we'll just do columns, and also set print area. So if I say when it comes to printing, I want in this custom view not only these two columns hidden, but also the print area to be the C's for cinnamon, clear skin, and clove. And to set that print area, come up here and click on the Page Layout tab, go to the Page Setup group, click on Print Area to set the print area, then click off, and I don't know if you can see this, but there's a thin gray border around what I had selected here. Then let's go ahead and take a snapshot of it, come back up here, click on the View tab to the Workbook Views group, Custom Views, click on Add, and my final custom view. Well, you get the idea. For the purpose of this training video, I wanted to spell it out what we did. We have the print range with the C oils and 2 hidden columns. So I could say H and I. Then click OK. Then we can come up here, click on Custom Views, and we want to see one, select it, click on Show, and there you go. There's the original. Now you can imagine that if you had a lot of custom views, to come up here and click once, and then come down here and select it, that would be a second click, and then click Show, that would be 3 clicks. Instead, you can add this custom view up here on the Quick Access toolbar by right-clicking, going down to Customize the Quick Access toolbar, changing it from Popular to All Commands, and scrolling down to the C's. And there it is, Custom Views. Double-click to add it over to the right, click Okie dokie. And there you go. Now see if this isn't much easier to access by clicking on a drop-down arrow. Yeah, you get to see them there. You don't have to have that extra click. This requires 2 clicks instead of 3. Whew. Now this training video was worth everything that you paid for because I saved you a click. Go ahead and you can choose original and then click on the drop-down arrow. You can do the print range with the 2 hidden columns. Well, that's just fun. As you recall, I first introduced macros in an earlier training video titled Advanced Filter, and I did it because it was very helpful when it came to using that feature, and I strongly recommend that you watch it. But know that this is the formal introductory training video on macros. Now, having said that, let's go ahead and get started. First of all, what is a macro? A macro is a quick, easy solution to cut down on repeating a task over and over again by recording it just once, and then saving it as a macro, and then executing that saved macro again and again like lightning with a single click of a button or using shortcut keys. So for example, I've got my workbook here, and on each worksheet within the workbook, I have a total of 5 worksheets. I've got the title of the worksheet, so there's Arizona, click on California, and New York, and so on. So what I want to do is I want to go ahead and format the titles of each of my worksheets in cell A1 on each worksheet, make it bold, big, bad, and beautiful. And to do that, instead of going to sheet 1 and applying all the different formats, then to sheet 2 and 3, just go ahead and do it on 1, record it, and then once you have it saved, you can go ahead and execute that really quick, like with shortcut keys. So to record my steps, like changing the formatting for cell A1 for the title of this worksheet, Arizona, you can do it one of many ways. You can either come up here and click on the View tab, go to the Macros group, click on the Macros drop-down arrow, and there it is, Record Macro. You can click on it there, or if you have the Developer tab, as you recall in an earlier training video, you right-click on the ribbon, and you check to bring up the Developer tab if you don't have it. And then you can just come over here to the Code group and click on Record Macro, or you can come down here on the status bar, and there it is right there. And you can see when I hover over it, it says no macros are currently recording. Click to begin recording a new macro. So click on any one of those 3, click on it, and there we go. First of all, we need to give it a name, maybe assign a shortcut key to it, give it a description. Then when we click OK, it records the steps, not the time. So take as long as you want. In any case, let's go ahead and give it a name because macro 1 doesn't tell me what the macro is going to be used for. And it's going to be called Format Titles because we're formatting the titles of all our worksheets. And I use the underscore to give it the illusion of having some space because I don't like to cram everything together because macro names do not like characters, and that includes spaces. So I gave it the underscore. Otherwise, you can get rid of the underscore and just keep it all together. Next is the shortcut key. If you want to assign it a shortcut key, well, if you do Control P, that's for print. It's already being used. I don't want to do that. Maybe Control M, or better yet, if you're running out of control clicks of any letter, you can hold down the Shift key and then hit the letter like maybe M. Hey, look at that. So now you have 3 that you have to hit at once to be able to execute this macro, Control, Shift, and M. All right, next, store the macro in this workbook, or the other choices are a new workbook. So when I click OK, after I select new workbook, it opens up a new workbook for me to store the macro in, or the personal macro workbook. Now that's a hidden workbook that opens when you start Excel and makes the code you copy in this workbook available in all your workbooks. Let's go ahead and keep it simple and say it's going to be this workbook and give it a description. You can make it really descriptive and saying, okay, we're applying this format, the color magenta, make it size 50, or something generic like applying formats to title of worksheets. Sound good? Click OK and it's recording. Okay, don't move. No, I'm kidding. It doesn't record time, but it records your steps. So when you're recording and you go through the steps and you're done, you can click on stop either down below on the status bar. You can see it says a macro is currently recording. Click on it to stop, or you can come up here if you have the developer tab, changes from record to stop, or go to the view tab, click on macros, and it changed from recording to stop, so you can stop it in any one of those three areas. In any case, it's recording steps, and you can see that I already have the cell that I want to apply the formatting to selected, so I don't have to jump to it. And if I did, it wouldn't matter because it's recording not where it's coming from, but where it's going to. So if I made a mistake in my recording, I'm like, oops, no, wait a second. It recorded all those clicks. So let me go back to Arizona. So should I stop it and re-record again? Well, that's up to you, but the macros, when they're executed, they go through so fast you won't see it jumping around from one cell to the next until you get to the cell that you actually want to apply the formatting to, so I'll leave it as is, and you'll see that in just a minute. So let's go ahead and apply formatting to it. Come up here, click on the Home tab. Let's make it red, and let's change the size to 20. And the font type, let's type in mono. There we go. Hit enter, monotype cursive. Ooh, that's pretty. And that's it for me. So let's come down here on the status bar and click stop, and we're good. Now that we have the macro recorded, we can go to the next worksheet and run the macro. And we can do it one of, well, at least three ways. The fourth way was to create a button and assign the macro to it, which we went over in the advanced filter training video, so I won't cover that here. The other three ways is to use a macro button that's already been created, use the shortcut keys, Control-Shift-M, or to go ahead and just run it from, well, either up here on the View tab, go to the Macros group, click on the Macros drop-down arrow, and click on View Macros, and you can see that's where it's sitting in this container here, the macro window, and you can click on Run, and it'll run it. But if I click on Run now, it's going to apply to the headings here that I have selected for the columns, quarter 1, 2, 3, and 4, so don't want to do that. And so if you try to select it here, it thinks that we got a new macro name. You can see the marching ants. We don't want to do that. So you have to click Cancel and select the cell before you run it. And again, you can view the macros here. Go to the Developer tab, view the macros here. You're pulling it up to be able to select it. Make sure you got the right macro selected. We only have one, so okay, that's not going to be an issue. And then click Run, and hey, there we go. So next, for New York, again, the other way we can do it is the shortcut keys, Control-Shift-M. Oh, nice. And then finally, let's go to Utah and select the cell, is that you can actually customize the quick access toolbar and add the macro to it that you can click on it to run it as well. So right click anywhere on the quick access toolbar, go down to customize the quick access toolbar, change it from popular commands to macros. And we just have one macro. It's the format titles. Double click to add it over to the right, but I don't know about you. That icon's just not doing it for me. So with it selected, let's go ahead and modify it and have a happy face, the symbol representing it, so you don't get that funny little thing up there on the quick access toolbar. And then for the display name, you can be a little bit more descriptive when people hover over it to find out the purpose of that happy face. We can say, Formats Titles of Worksheets, click Okie dokie. Looks good, click OK. There he is. Let's go ahead and hover over him to see the display name. Format Titles of Worksheets, great. Click on him and, ooh, that was slick. Now you need to know that when you create macros from a basic Excel workbook, when I say basic, look up here on the title bar, the extension .xlsx, that's the default macro workbook, the extension thereof. And if you want to learn more about extensions, how to see them, how to hide them, what they mean, and the problems you can run into, then watch my Windows training video on extensions. But in any case, macros will not be saved unless it's a macro-enabled workbook. So you have to change it and save it to 1, which the extension will be XLSM for macro. Otherwise, you'll lose the embedded macro code, and I don't want to lose it. I want to hold on to it. And the reason being is because macros are a prevalent tool for transferring computer viruses. So Excel requires that all workbooks with macros to be saved in the XLSM extension, the format, to provide increased security. So to do that, let's go ahead and just click on Save and see what happens. And it warns you, it says, hey, we can't save this in macro-free workbooks. You can either go ahead and continue and save it in this workbook, which means you lose the macro, it deletes it, we won't do that. Or you can click No, and it opens up the Save As Type window for us to go ahead and change the type from the basic XLSX click on it, and let's go to the macro-enabled workbook, which is right there. Excel macro-enabled workbook, XLSM, macro. And then once we change it, we can go ahead and save it. And then it says, be careful, parts of your document may include personal information that can't be removed by the document inspector. As you recall in the properties training video, if you want to add the author or more details to the properties, it may not clear out. So after you save it and click Okie dokie, you may want to come up here and go Backstage File, Info selected by default. Let's come over here and click on Show All Properties, and there's the hyperlink based videotrainingpro.com. Click on Properties to Advanced Properties, see if there's any additional details that I don't want to be included. In any case, you can go ahead and check for issues and inspect the document. And I'm looking at it right here, Document Properties and Personal Information. So when I click on Inspect, it says it found some. You can go ahead and click Remove All, and then click Close. And it looks like the hyperlink base is still staying there on my website, in which case I may want to remove it manually. It's probably a good idea to double check. Sometimes if you just save and close out and reopen it, it will be removed. But again, it did give us the warning saying it may not have been removed. In any case, you want to keep an eye on that. And we'll talk about the document inspector in a later training video, but we already went over it briefly here in this training video. So once we save it to the desktop, let's go ahead and close out. And it wants to know if we want to save it. I mean, we already saved it. It's on the desktop. But if I click Save, it says, be careful. Keeps giving me that warning. That's fine. And we'll cover the document inspector in another training video, but we went over it briefly here. That's okay. It's important that we do. Click OK. And hey, look at this. Which one of these is not like the other? Like I said, with the extensions, you can see there's XLSX and XLSM. Again, you can watch my Windows training video on it if you can't see yours in your Windows operating system. But I can see mine, and if you can't see them, you can look at the icon, because this one has the exclamation point. And you can see when I hover over it, that means it's macro enabled. It's like exclamation point, da-da, something's going on here. You sure you want to open this up? Because if it has a macro in it, and you got this from somebody who meant to do harm, it could destroy your computer. Those macros can be programmed to do a lot of damage and harm to your computer. And then, of course, over here you get no exclamation point, no warning. Now, in earlier versions of Excel, it had the macros saved in the basic worksheet. So you may want to be careful when you open up those as well. And in fact, when it comes to editing the macro, I'll show you the macro security, how you can enable it in case if you get a worksheet that was created in an earlier version of Excel that has a macro in it that you think, oh, it's just a regular worksheet or workbook. It's not in the latest versions of Excel where it separates the two. Then we can say, look, just disable all macros from any workbook that I open. That's going to be your safest bet. Now, as I mentioned, macros can contain harmful viruses or bad code that can destroy your computer. So if you're concerned about accidentally opening up a workbook that contains a macro, you can disable them. And to do that, you want to open up Excel, double click. Don't open up the macro enabled workbook to disable it, because if that's got a virus in it, it would destroy your computer before you could disable it, right? Let's come up here and click on the File tab to go Backstage, down to Options. Go ahead and click on Trust Center. Then come over here and click on Trust Center Settings. And then go over and click on Macro Settings, and whoopsie doodle, I did a no-no. I had Enable All Macros, which isn't recommended because it could be dangerous if somebody sends you a workbook that contains the bad code. So the other options you get is you can disable all macros without notifications, so that way you open up any workbook, it's not going to have those macros running. Or you can disable with notifications, saying, okay, you open up a workbook, we do have macros, do you want to enable them? You get the choice. And then you can disable all macros except for digitally signed macros. And digitally signed are those from trusted sources, or at least we hope. In any case, that's my disclaimer. So choose which one works best for you. And as an example, if I choose Disable All with Notification, let's see what that looks like. Select it, click OK, click OK. And you have to close out of Excel before the changes can take effect. And then go ahead and open it back up, or like the macro-enabled workbook. And it says, hey, you've been warned. Do you want to go ahead and enable the content? If you choose yes and it's a bad code, whoopsie doodle. Or you can go ahead and close out of here and say, well, let me ignore this session. Don't enable it. I just want to close out of it so I don't see the warning. Then when you close out of here and you open it back up again, you get the warning again, in which case you can go ahead and enable it and say, yeah, I trust it, in which case you can use the macros in it. And when you close out of it and you open up the same workbook after you enabled it, it's not going to give you the warning again because now it's a trusted document. Excel automatically figures if you enabled it that it's going to be trusted from here on out. But if you want to change that, you can come up here, click on the File tab, go backstage down to Options, go to Trust Center, to Trust Center Settings, and we want to select Trusted Documents. And we can clear all trusted documents so they are no longer trusted. When you click on Clear, we just have one document, but if you had additional ones, it's going to clear them all, so none of them are going to be trusted. And if I say yes, then none of them are trusted, including the one that we're working on. Click OK, click OK. So when I close out of here and I open it back up, we get the warning again with the option to enable it. Now, for the sake of this training video, as far as working with macros, I don't want to be playing with enabling them every single time. So let me go back to File, Options, Trust Center Settings, to Macros, to say Enable All. And then click OK, click OK. Of course, when I close out of Excel, it'll take effect when I reopen it again. I don't get the warning. Next, I want to go over the Personal Macro Workbook. Remember, in our regular workbook, when you record a macro and you save it, it forces you to do a Save As. Otherwise, if you don't save it into a macro-enabled workbook with the extension M, then it deletes the macro. But with the Personal Macro Workbook, when you're recording it, or when you're setting up for record and you choose that option, it will store that macro into a hidden workbook. So every time you open up Excel, even the regular workbook, it will run macros from that regular workbook. So you don't have to save it as a macro-enabled workbook, but in the background, hidden somewhere, like let's pretend right here, is going to be that Personal Macro Workbook storing all those macros. So let's go ahead and open up this regular workbook. Again, the workbook doesn't have a macro in it. To verify, click on the View tab, go to the Macros, click on the Macro button, no macros. Let's go ahead and close out. Come down here on the status bar and click on Record to begin. And let's call it, well, let's do something simple. Format. We can do the shortcut key, hold down the Shift key and hit the letter M for Control-Shift-M. And it wants to store in the Personal Macro Workbook. If that doesn't come up, then click on the drop-down arrow and select it. And then just the description if you want to add a description. Format Titles, and then click OK. It's now recording by the little stop button here. So let's go ahead with it selected, come up here and click on the Home tab and apply format to it, like the color, change the size. And that's good enough for me for this example. We'll go ahead and click Stop. And then when we come up here and click Save, is it going to force me to do a Save As? Click Save. It didn't. Why? Because we have a hidden workbook that has all the macros stored to it because we saved it to that personal workbook. So every time we open up Excel, it's going to bring up that Personal Macro Workbook in the background. In fact, if you come up here and click on the View tab and you go to the Window group, you see the Unhide. It's actually active, meaning that something's being hidden. What is it? Click on Unhide, and it's our Personal Macro Workbook. So if I go ahead and click OK, it's up, and it's storing all the macros. So remember, we created a macro that says Format, so when I click on the View tab and go to Macros, there it is, Format. It's holding it for this other workbook right here, the regular workbook, or any workbook that you open up. Whether it's macro-enabled or not, is going to pull it over from the, well, it's no longer hidden now, the Personal Macro Workbook. So if I go ahead and close out of here and close out of there, and I save it, and I want to go ahead and open up Excel, like let's begin a new workbook. Let's go ahead and come over here and double click. Notice up here on the title bar, it's the Personal Macro Workbook. Well, why is that pulling up? Well, because it's no longer hidden, and every time you open up Excel, it's got to pull it up so it can have the macros ready for your use. So if you unhide it, and you don't want to work in that workbook, then you have to come over here and click on File, go to New, create another workbook here so you can start from scratch, and then go ahead and do your changes in here and save and close out. But then we still have the Personal Workbook, the Personal Macro Workbook open over here. And so what we can do is if you want it to go back into hiding, then click on the View tab and click on Hide. And then we can go ahead and close out of here. But the thing is that it says, do you want to save changes you made to the Personal Macro Workbook? We don't want to save it to the one that we just opened up, but we want to save the Personal Macro Workbook because we want it hidden every time we open up Excel. So save to that. The other one closes out. So when I come back up here, open up Excel, double click. Hey, opens up Excel without the personal macro workbook, but it is hidden. Remember, the View tab, the Unhide feature is available because we have something that is being hidden in the background, and that's our personal macro workbook. Click Cancel. Now let's say that I don't want the personal macro workbook opening up every time I open up Excel. Well, deleting the macros from the personal macro workbook, either one or all of them, isn't going to prevent it from opening up. What you have to do is, let me go ahead and close out of here, is open up your computer, double click, go to the C drive, and drill down to the users, and then whatever username you logged in under as, like I'm logged in under training, double click on that. And there's app data. Now app data has a faded folder, meaning that by default, it's something that you shouldn't be viewing at or looking in. So if you can't see it and you want to see it, then hit the Alt key on the keyboard to bring up the menu. Click on the Tools menu, go down to Folder Options, click on the View tab, and it's right here, Show Hidden Files, Folders, and Drives. By default, it'll say Don't Show, but we want to see it. Select it, click OK. Then you'll be able to see it. Double click on that. Then go down to Roaming, double click on Roaming. Then find Microsoft, double click on Microsoft. Then find Excel. There it is, double click. And there it is, Excel Start. Excel Start. So when you start Excel, double click. There he is. He's hiding our personal macro workbook. Go ahead and right click, delete it. Yes. Close out. And when I open up Excel, double click. Go to the View tab. The Unhide command is no longer available to click on because there's nothing to hide. The personal macro workbook has been deleted. And by the same token, if you want to edit the macros in the personal macro workbook or just delete a few of them, you can unhide it, in which case you can go into the macros and make changes there if you'd like. Now another thing you can do that you may want to consider if you don't want a personal macro workbook, but you have some macros in some workbooks that you'd like in others, but not in all of them, you can copy your macros between workbooks. And to do that, well, I've got my workbook here. Let me go ahead and do a Save As and save this as a macro-enabled workbook. There we go. XLSM, and we'll call it the empty macro workbook. Go ahead and click Save. And then to be able to copy it from the other workbook, let me go ahead and minimize this down to the taskbar. You have to open up the one that you want to copy from, so they both have to be open. So let's go ahead and open up our Macro Basics workbook, double click. And so now we have our empty one, then we have the one that contains the macro. And then what you can do is come up here, click on the View tab, go to the Macros group, click on Macros, and you can see the macro, only one, Format Titles, click on Edit. Now we'll cover this a little bit more in the next training video about how to edit the macros, but right here, I want to go over just how to copy from one workbook to the other. And you can see the workbook that I have is the empty macro, that's open, and also the workbook that I'm currently in, the one that contains the macro. And you can see the worksheets, Arizona, California, and so on for this workbook, and a module. Now the module is the actual macro. And when I come up here and I click to expand it for the empty macro workbook, and I expand the Microsoft Excel objects, it doesn't have it at all, no modules. So to be able to copy this module, that macro, over into that empty macro workbook, it's as simple as clicking and dragging and dropping it right on the Microsoft Excel objects folder. When you let go, it creates the modules folder that when you expand, has the copy of the module 1 from the other workbook. And it's that simple. So all you have to do is go ahead and File to close and return. And we're in the original macro workbook, but if I go over to my empty macro workbook, and I come up here and click on Macros, hey, there it is, Format Titles, already in there. And it's got something that's ghosting over from the workbook. So if I click Cancel, let me just go ahead and save it, close out, and there's my empty macro workbook that we copied it over into. When I open it back up again, double click, and then click on the View tab. then click on Macros. You see how it doesn't have that second title there? It was ghosting over until I refreshed it by closing out of Excel and opening it back up. Then I just get my only macro that I copied over from the other workbook that just had that single macro. Let's go ahead and take it for a test drive. Close out. Let's type in some text here. Hit enter. Select it. And then Control-Shift-M. Hey, it works. Thanks for watching. Hey, as a quick reminder, if you like my video, please give it a thumbs up. You can also click on me and subscribe to my channel to get notified of the latest videos. And for great specials on my products, please see the description below this video.